Thanks for the ministry of this cathedral. We give thanks for your church. Hope-filled, imperfect, inspirational, challenging, above all, an opportunity into a deeper life of faith, an opportunity to proclaim a deeper witness. We give thanks for the many faithful folks who have made this moment possible through service in the recent weeks, through devotion and stewardship over the past 2 centuries. Help us to be mindful of that profound gift. Help us to create a space that will continue to be one of proclamation and transformation for decades and centuries to come. Give thanks for all those who've offered themselves for leadership, and I give thanks for all those who are here today gathering in this space. All this we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Jeff.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Spees. I serve as the senior warden of the cathedral, and it's my pleasure, after having done the math very accurately this morning, to state that we have a quorum and can proceed with the annual meeting. I would also like to acknowledge Luke over here, who chaired the nominating committee this year and who is manning the ballots. And since it is Groundhog Day, I can repeat. The ballots need to be in like real soon. Because as soon as the box disappears, the ballots are closed. Thank you very much. And now we get to hear from the dean.
Okay.
I will walk through and grab any ballots that are still out.
The balloting is now closed. Before I begin, a reminder to our vestry. Both our newly elected vestry as well as those who are outgoing. Please gather. We want to gather immediately afterwards. And one change of location, we will be in conference room AB rather than Cathedral Hall. And thank you for your adjustment between after the service. This is the first time in a number of years where we have held the annual meeting afterwards. We still plan to, this will not be an all-day affair, though I suppose it can be, but this gives us a little bit more time to go into the details of the report, as well as a little more time for question and answer. So let us know how this works for you, rather than having it between 2 services. So I'm going to begin, and I'm actually going to be reporting to you twice. I'm going to start by just sharing a little bit of where we are. I did start this off. For those of you, I do encourage you to read, study, and inwardly digest the annual report. We put a lot of prayerful intention into that, including my own report, my pastoral letter to you, which I admit is more than a page. But I really think this is a great opportunity each year to give a big picture of where we are and where we are going. And it really is an exciting moment for Trinity, and I invite you to spend some time with that as we share a little bit of that. So I'm going to take a few notes, just a number of things I want to check in. First, I want to give thanks for our cathedral staff, not only for their very hard work in preparing, well, everything for the past 2 months, from Christmas services to annual report. There's no rest for the weary, because we turn immediately to Absalom Jones and the parochial report, so it's an exciting life. But I want to mention this because, as we know, there are seasons when there can be a lot of turnover. And the last few years, there really has been. And there have been moments where that was particularly challenging. And we often, when we are at our best, we go from strength to strength. where faithful folks who hold leadership positions move on, and then it's always a moment of kind of panic because where are we going to go from here? But the Spirit has been very generous, and I just notice, I often have a moment where I notice when we are gathered around the staff table, what an abundance of riches and goodness we have in such a strong staff, and I thought there's a great opportunity to compare it to our favorite basketball team right now, who I absolutely love watching. And why? Because besides the fact that they're just really good at basketball, they are, anybody watched a few Cavs games this year? All right. They are amazing because, first of all, everybody is good. I mean, everybody is good. You don't know which person is going to really shine on a given day, but they're also profoundly unselfish, and it's just a joy to watch. And I think that's how we want to cultivate leadership in the cathedral, not only on the staff, but we're also really beginning to see over the years emerging a deeper bench of volunteer leadership. Those who have served in mission teams, those who have served stepping into the role of cathedral circle leadership. This is an important stage in the life cycle of a congregation. As more and more folks begin to discern ways that they can take the mantle of leadership in a community like a cathedral. So it's something absolutely to celebrate. This year, Adrienne became a canon for mission and transformation. I think you'll see a similar slide when she's speaking. I assure you we do talk, but on weeks like this, not that much. And that not only really strengthens her role as a pastoral leader of the cathedral, a wider liturgical role in the diocese, and I'll talk about this on the next slide. We are shifting, we're trying to make changes to our staff and thinking, whenever possible, a year or two out. And there is some strategy to how we're thinking about that, and that really much of it has to do with where we have begun a search for a priest associate. And this person, besides sharing in the pastoral leadership of the cathedral, will also have some specific responsibilities in the areas of community outreach and pastoral care. What we're trying to do is not simply add a position, but really strengthen our staff and our overall capacity for the kind of congregational care that makes a faith community a church, that makes this place not just a great cathedral, but also a home where we all come together, where we are known and know one another. And I think where we really want to see a new person come in and help us with that is through deepening our pastoral care and strengthening our community outreach. Now, a big part of that as well, and I sent a letter to the congregation a couple days ago announcing Ginger Bittakofer's retirement in the year 2037. And I'm already nervous about that. But that's a significant change for us, right? She is, looking at her, she is the lifeblood of this place and deeply beloved, and there is not a ministry that Ginger does not touch and inspire. And so it's gonna take us a long time to say thank you, but it also means, we need to be thinking, we are not going, as we said, we're not going to find Ginger 2.0 because we're just not. But it also means it's an opportunity to think about how we carry out all of our work and all of our ministry. So invite you to be a part of that. I am thrilled with the shape and the feel and the sound of our ministry these days. And I thought today's service just gave a great example of what is just going great. We're seeing great, I think Sunday leadership, of course, there's so much more than what we do on a Sunday, but Sunday is pretty essential to who we are. And between from our rowdy, quiet folks at 8 a.m., and they are rowdy, to just a fabulous abundant table service, now led by Craig Ganskuhar, as well as a growing choir, new repertoire for our 11:15, and I think a significant change in Wednesday evening, where we are recognizing an opportunity to really grow, to preserve a tradition of choral evensong. This time last year, we were doing it every Wednesday. But by preserving that every other week, but now offering Compline, now offering what we're calling expansive evensong, really allows that, to me, I think, a more lively worship space for the whole cathedral. And I just encourage you to try it out. Come to a few Wednesdays, be a part of it. Be part of a lot of our programming, because that's, as I alluded to in my homily. I didn't allude to it, I said it. Stewardship is showing up. Stewardship is showing up. So think of yourself as a cathedral congregation. You are early adopters. Helping our services, our programs, our community life to grow. And we cannot do it without you. We cannot do it without you. It is a great thing to meet newcomers every week, to follow up with them, to invite them to be a part of our congregation. This year we saw GCC thrive. We were part of Battle for Democracy. Thrilled to see so many of your smiling faces in Dean's Forums. Thrilled to see Bible studies growing. And thrilled to conclude this part of the Dean's Report, because we're going to get to the fun stuff later, to invite Paul Hergesell forward.
On a personal note, today is a little bit of sadness, but also a little bit of relief for me, because it's my last day on the vestry and the last day as your treasurer. But
you'll notice at the back of your packet, we'll have a chance to vote to change those rules so that Paul can serve for a while longer.
But I do want to thank the congregation for the opportunity, because it has been an incredibly rewarding experience. I mean, I have been involved and learned so much more about all of the programs and activities that go on in the cathedral and the people that make them happen. Of course, we have a lot going on Sundays, but 7 days a week there's stuff going on here. So it's been a great experience for me, so thank you very much for that. So let's talk a little bit about our financial results for 2024. I'll have a couple slides here that we can go through. This is also in your handout, so you can follow however way you would like to do that. So I'm happy to report that the financial health of the cathedral is in good order. In summary, our income for 2024 was slightly higher than we budgeted, and our expenses were significantly lower than what we budgeted. So this allowed us to balance our budget with a reduced draw from the endowments, all good things. So you've got two sheets in here we want to go back and forth through on the income and the expenses side. Before we get into the actual numbers, let me talk a little bit about how the budget comes together and what are the parts and pieces, so you'll be a little bit more familiar with that. When we start our budget process in the fall, we focus first on the items that we are work as a church. And that's these items here on the expense side. You see worship and liturgy, spiritual formation, congregational care, and we have some mission activities. So the clergy and staff define the goals and the priorities for the upcoming year, and then we budget the associated expenses with those. And then going down from there, we have a number of expenses related to our operations. And so you can see the next line down is the diocesan assessment. Now, this is a contribution that every church makes to the diocese, and it is proportional to the expenses or the size of the activity of each church. Trinity Commons Net. Now, this is the cathedral's contribution to the operations of the commons, which is a responsibility that we share with the diocese. And then the last two items here, if I can try and, your property and administration. That's all of the operating activities, which includes maintenance, the operations, insurance, and our staff that we have to run the cathedral. And so then that gives us our total expense line for budgeting. Now let's go back to the income line. So in creating the budget, we look at what our expenses are based upon what we want to do. Then we have to look at, okay, where will we get these funds? So you can look on our income side of things, and in bold you'll see we have 5 categories: congregational support, grants, earned income, the friends and corporate support, and the endowment. So as far as congregational support is what the congregation pledges, the weekly offerings, and any special gifts that we get and come into our budget. We work with the stewardship committee each fall to estimate what we expect the pledge contributions will be for the upcoming year. The other items, grants, earned income, and the friend support, we estimate those based upon any current information and some of the historical trends in order to come up with those. So then, having those sources, our last step in the process is the endowments. So this is where we go to balance our budget, is to take the endowment as our source of funds for the operation. And it's important for everyone to realize and note that the endowment is here to take care of the bricks and mortar types of work, fixing roofs and things like that. But you can see here it's also extremely important to our operations, which means it's extremely important to our mission as a church. Okay, so let's go back to the expense sheet. So here you have the actual results for the year 2024. So there's 2 observations that we should look at whenever we want to see these results. One, did we balance our budget? All right, if you look down at this bottom line here, net surplus from operations. That is income minus expenses, and what does it equal? 0, which is our goal. We want to have a balanced budget. So, good news there. Next question would be, how do our results compare to what we budgeted? Okay, so starting on the expense side, you can see down here the total is 1.9 million and some extra there, and that was actually $225,000 less than what we budgeted. So very good news there. Now the savings came from reductions in wage and benefit costs, lower than expected maintenance costs, and some smaller reduction in food, communications, and programming. So a good step there on the expense side. Let's talk about income. If we look at our first 4 categories, congregational support, grants, earned income, and friends and corporate support, in total, we are above budget by about $12,000. Also good. So what is the impact of that? Well, if our income is better than expected and our expenses are lower than we expected, that means less of a draw on the endowment. So this line down here on endowments, you can see the $1.3 million. This was $237,000 less than what we budgeted. So good for the endowment, good for the long-term health in the endowment, and good all around. All right. So let's go to the next chart, and I'll talk a little bit about, or the last chart, a little bit about the endowment and what happened there. Okay, so we started, look on this line here, total endowment and assets 12/31/2023. So we started with $21.9 million in the endowment, and then these lines down here are sort of the activities. Here, this line here, withdrawal for 2023, it should be 2024 operations. That's the $1.3 million we were just talking about, operations draw. Below that is the withdrawal for capital, $208,000 for the capital projects. Dave Miano is going to talk about that shortly and tell you about there. And then the fourth item is the gain to our endowments was $2.8 million as a result of a very strong stock market this year. So the resulting effect is this line item here, net change in value. After we took out our money that we needed to operate and fix capital items, we still had an increase in the endowment of $1.3 million, leaving us ending the year at $23.2 million. So again, a very good year for the endowment. So if I can summarize 2024 for you, we balanced our budget, spent less than we had planned, and saw an increase in the value of the endowment. The vestry has already approved the 2025 budget, and we're in operations with that. And so we look forward to a strong year for worship formation and our outreach activities. So I would like to say thanks to the clergy and the staff for all their efforts throughout the year to accomplish our mission while carefully managing our expenses. I would also like to give special thanks to two people on the staff who have been extremely helpful to me as the treasurer. The first is Dan Hout-Riley. Dan, our controller. Dan, why don't you stand up so everyone can see you. So Dan's the one who does really all the hard work that gets us these excellent financial results. And when I'm in the vestry meeting explaining some of our results, I often say to the vestry, I'm just a pretty face that talks about the numbers. Dan's the guy who gets it done.
I want to be Niang, but I'm too small.
And the other person I would like to recognize is Doreen Hughes. Doreen, where are you?
She's here.
She's working, probably. All right. Well, Doreen is the person who keeps the cathedral running on schedule, and she's also been extremely helpful to me in organizing all of our committee meetings and getting our information out to all of our committee members. I can tell you that organizing volunteer committees is a lot like herding cats, but Doreen is excellent at that.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Yes, even though I can't see her, she's not here. Let's give her thanks. All right, so thank you. If you have questions, save those for later because we're going to have a Q&A session at some point, and I think that's good for me. All right.
Thank you. Following the Cavs metaphor, we're going to make Dan, Jared Allen, and Doreen can be Darius Garland. So we're going to think about who we're connecting. I just want to also just take a moment to acknowledge Paul has been a vestry member for a 6-year term that I think became like 6.5 at the very least, and began as a junior warden, then served was at large, then a junior warden, then was treasurer for at least 5 years. Let's take a moment to think about what 5 years those were. We were pandemic. We went through a lot of transition. We went through a lot of changes, and Paul, not only bringing a sharp and discerning mind, has been deeply faithful and steadfast, and I cannot tell you what a gift he has been to this congregation over the past 5 years. So, Paul, thank you very much. Would you like a Cavs team name for you? Okay, you can be Niang.
No, Evan Mobley.
Evan Mobley. Oh my goodness, Evan Mobley. Yes. Oh.
Hi, everybody. I would like to start this by just actually naming the Property Committee, Property and Sustainability Committee. It is truly a committee, and so I'm going to start out. John Silvis is the operations manager. Is John here today? No. Mark Biddlestone is the vestry liaison. Bill DeTiro, Bruce Elliott, Barbara Hermes, Martin Hermes, Diane Hexter, Corrine Wallner, Steve Gittens, Gail Smith, and Steve Reike. That each person that is active in this committee really has a unique perspective and brings an important point of view. There's a lot of deliberations that go on in this process. So I'm going to start with 2024 year in review, and then we'll go into what's on the horizon for the next years. The first thing is the Whitney stained glass, the stained glass project. I think everybody has noticed that this year there are you can see that it is in progress. There's still some work still being done. The first window that was returned is back in the chapel on the right-hand side. If you go in there to take a look, you can really see a difference between the old and the new. There is one, and then there are other ones up in the The choir room, that window was replaced. There are 3 ongoing in the vesting room. And over here on the east transept, those are going to be, they're scheduled for finishing up in February of this year. So we should be getting those back pretty soon. We had a meeting with Whitney here in the Cathedral and reviewed the progress in June. At that time, there was an assessment that window over there on the the west transept we are reprioritizing that into this coming year. They discovered that it needs work sooner than we had originally planned, so that's the first one's on the list for next year, and so that's been an ongoing process with them. We're monitoring how they're working, and we are also, before we sign the next contracts into the upcoming years, we're going to make sure about the scheduling and clarification of the priorities. So we're working on that before we sign up for the next go around. We also discovered that there's protective glazing missing on a couple windows on this side, and we have asked for some pricing on that. We're going to be getting those proposals and adding that in. The third floor stained glass is in the youth room. They discovered during some masonry work that work needs to be done around the perimeters of that. They took those stained glass out. Those are being worked on, and the perimeter masonry is being worked on now as we go now. Masonry repairs, which is Frost Building Maintenance, has been working here at the Cathedral for many years, knows the building well, and we're very confident in the work that they do. They have completed work on the parish house. Work has been done. The Cathedral Hall work has been done. The East 22nd Street stone wall is out on the site, out by the East 22nd Street. It's a low wall. We have not completed that because we are taking a look at the priorities, and as Paul mentioned, there is a very strong relationship between the requests that the property committee brings to the budget, and so as we pay attention to that, we reassess. So we held that one in bay for this year. There was a report given to us very late in the year in 2023. We were not able to get that into the budgeting, but we have been monitoring, and that work is planned for this coming year. And then I mentioned the third floor stained glass. They had to order some new stone that was deteriorated, and that's being worked on now. When the work was underway in the church house, parish house, they noticed, and this is a good example of John being very diligent and attentive during this work, and he noticed that it would be very efficient to take care of some deteriorated wood around some perimeter frames while the scaffolding was in place. So we did that, and we authorized that work to be done, and that came out very well. Let's see. The Commons copper repairs, there were some leaks discovered up there around the perimeter up at the parapet. There was some separation of copper that had to be resoldered and put together. And then there was also some separation and degradation on the west wall. This is all, I'm going to say, normal. It's not any defect other than just time and the impact of weathering. So that work was finished. let's see. I think if you remember from last year, there was a cathedral crack investigation survey that was implemented. They came out in August. They actually flew a drone. They came inside and inspected. They flew a drone outside, checked all of that out, and that final report is pending. We don't have the final, but we are comfortable. They have not identified anything major, so we want to follow up with that. That's still underway. There is an ongoing deliberation about the cathedral wood door refinishing. This is, there have been a number of estimates. We're still trying to find the most appropriate proposal. We have not contracted with anyone yet, and that search is still underway. The blower bearing gasket, this is down below in the basement. This was the original gasket that's been repaired. This is what actually brings the heat through these vents that you see as you walk across and blowing up on everybody. And that was a small, comparatively small outlay, but a very important progress there. The steam system, a number of I don't know, there were some, I was going to say defects, but I don't want to characterize it that way, just things that had to be fixed. And those things were addressed, and John is still working with them on investigating some issues with the input coming in from the 12-inch main from the street coming in under Cathedral Hall. Heat pump motors, 2 in conference room A, B, and CD. That's ongoing. It may be fixed now. I think it was ongoing at the time. I still have to check with John on the status of that. And the mechanical system assessment. We asked Karpinski Engineering to assist us with evaluating the systems. They have come in with a draft report. We're still investigating, or we're still understanding that report. We're going to have some more deliberations with them and finalizing those to assess what needs to be done. The Commons is 25 years old or so, and it is at a point where it's the normal lifespan of those systems is at a point to be reevaluated, and that's what we're having them help us do. The CSU Veterans Center door, that was vandalism. Those repairs are completed. I put that on there as an example of just unexpected things that come up that you can't budget for. You can't always plan for. In moving into 2025, the stained glass, there is another, as I mentioned, we're going to be completing, it's called Phase 2A. Those are the ones I mentioned before. This photo here is the middle door of the main entrance doors on Euclid, and you can see that they are due for the restoration that we're talking about. This other stained glass photo is that one over there that was identified as being in need of reprioritizing to bring that up to quicker restoration. The crack investigation I mentioned, the wood door finishing, and then this photo is the other one on the I guess it's the south wall of of Cathedral Hall. You can see that those are also in need of restoration, and we're working on getting that. The church house oriel window is on right over here on in the patio out there, the garden. If you look up, you can see there's degradation there that needs to be taken care of, and we're working on finding the right people to do that. The west wall basement nursery leaks. There was some furniture moved down there and inside the room, and once that furniture was moved, there was noticed some staining on the walls. That led to, okay, where's this coming from? And it has to do with, we're going to probably we've had some preliminary people coming out and taking a look at it, and it will probably have to be excavated and re-waterproof from the outside. So that's underway. Mechanical systems, the heat pumps we know are at their end of their life. The energy recovering ventilating units, Karpinski characterized it as a 100,000-mile service checkup, and those are the kinds of things we're talking about. Some malfunctioning pole lights in the garden on the 22nd Street. John's looking into that. Chapel altar rail repairs. Again, John is Rose Ironworks created a new hinge for them. John's putting it in. It may be in. I'm not sure. And there was some vandalism over there in the baptismal statuary where John is contacting a provider to take care of that. Stained glass, phase 2B are the other windows that are coming in the next sequence that I mentioned. And let's see, mechanical systems, I think we talked through most of that. The courtyard pavers are due for replacement. We know that that's coming up. We don't have any numbers on that yet, but that's what we'll be evaluating. The marble floor, there's been cracks. We've noticed them. You can see some tape in certain areas. We know that that has to be addressed. And it's pending the WJE crack investigation because when they came in here, we asked them about that. We wanted to make sure that we were not replacing marble that was going to crack again once we put it down. Let's see. Commons area carpet replacement we know is something to be looking at some point. Parking lot asphalt. And the native plant garden, I want to mention that because this is a project that was originated by an idea from Gail to create a garden that would teach sustainability and be something that we could utilize for our honoring those kinds of things. It's been characterized as a sacred garden in many ways. And as we started deliberating, we put it on hold. Everyone was very intrigued by the idea and likes the idea, but we recognized that we should probably take a look at exactly where that should go and how that would be in context of the overall planning of the site campus that needs to be done again. And then one more thing that's not on the list I just want to mention is cathedral lighting is another thing that we know has normal ongoing maintenance, but then there's another idea of the more that we can replace lighting with LEDs, there will be a payback, a return on the investment for not only energy usage, but cost return on investment for that. So those are the kinds of things that we've been deliberating with. I think that's it.
As you can tell, there's a lot of things that we have to attend to with the cathedral, and I wasn't kidding when I said there's nothing permanent about a single brick in this place. And you might have noticed that a lot of those things that are very time-consuming, as well as resource-consuming, are actually from the commons. So even though that is, quote-unquote, the new space, A lot of it is hitting its life cycle. A lot of it is just, weather wants, I've learned living in Northeast Ohio, the weather wants to get inside and it wants to kill you. So we all know that, but I want to thank Dave and his team because it takes a lot of careful discernment. But I'm going to use that to pivot to look at where we are in a way in our congregational life cycle, in our cathedral life cycle, and name that there are challenges, but I think that there are really important opportunities for us to do something that we really have not done in the better part of a century. I think many of the projects that we are taking on are ones that are 40, 50 years delayed. And I'm not just talking about physical things, I'm just talking about in terms of how we resource our ministry in the years coming forward. And one thing that we discovered in the last year or so is just how much. So we have an endowment. We all know we have an endowment, and it looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. Except we rely on it very heavily to carry out all of our ministry. This is normal for a Rust Belt cathedral. It was established at a certain time, and in fact, we have drawn most of our endowment use over the last at least half century, because that's as far as our readily accessible records go, have been about mission and ministry. Have been about supporting a congregation through many changes, and it's really only in the last decade that we have started to truly move that into being an operations fund, a capital fund. And I think a lot of that is just, it's a beautiful, well-built building that hung out there pretty well for 110 years, 116 years, and now some things are showing their age. Or a lot of times, if something was breaking in 1967 and if you could postpone it for a little while because there were other things that we need to pay attention to, that often happened. Well, we have reached a place where we really can't do that anymore. And so we are asking our resources, our endowment, to do double duty, to carry both our capital expenses and our operations expense. And so we're going to be talking about what I'm calling new foundations, because I don't want us to panic, because we have resources and we have opportunities. But if we look at the story of Trinity and its relationship to the endowment and the relationship to our funds and our congregation, really over the last half century, it's been cycles of boom and bust, and it's often been a very heavy reliance on our endowment funds and a deep desire to get down to what we would say is a sustainable draw, which has been very tough for us to do over the last few decades. Can we make some changes, begin to do some things in the coming years, maybe the next 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, not only to restore sustaining ministries, but I would argue to completely change our relationship with the gifts of the past by bringing our own generosity into the ministry today and in the years to come. And that is the spirit in which I want to talk to you about what some of those new foundations might look like. We're going to talk about an endowment, but we're not talking about it because we just want to have a nice big pile of money, which, by the way, the endowment is roughly the same dollar amount that it was 20, 25 years ago, which anybody who knows about inflation knows that that means it is a greatly reduced spending amount. Or we are not closing up shop in a week or in a year or in 8 years. Don't worry about that. But it does mean that paying attention to this now means it changes the temper and it changes our ability to carry out our ministry, and it changes things like how much staff we can carry. Because the amount of funds we have to carry out our ministry is directly related to the amount of income we have from the endowment. And so let's name it. It is the tool, the primary tool that empowers and resources our ministry. And so I would like us to think about setting foundations for revitalized programming today and in the future. And as one person on one of these teams mentioned, the endowment set us up really well for our first 100 years. Now it's time for our culture to shift to prepare for our next 100 years. And that's not likely to come from William Mather 2.0. So the era of great Cleveland industrialists that built this place, that is past. However, we are in a different era, and there are some really remarkable resources as we begin to think, how do we carry out this ministry while giving thanks and drawing on the gifts of the past? So, first of all, I am so thrilled to kick off the Trinity Legacy Circle. I'm first going to name Cheryl Williams and Brett Boardwine for their work in creating this. We are kicking off planned giving at Trinity. It is something we've been saying we want to do for a long time, and now, you know how serious we are? We have a pamphlet. And it's really good. But we've also been doing a whole lot of back-end work, including being in conversation with fiduciary agents who can help us manage gifts, including beginning to do the foundation work of invitation. So there have not been a lot of significant gifts to the endowment in the last 100 years. Anything in excess of $10,000 or $15,000 is the outlier. And as any of us know, that is the endowment is only going to grow with the market, or it's going to shrink with the market, right? We did a great job with the endowment this year, right? We managed it great. That's because the market went great. But when the market goes bad, it doesn't help us either. The way to do this is to begin cultivating planned giving. This is a part of our eternal witness, right? We create spaces in our wills, and we talk to our families about why this is important, because that's part of sharing our faith. That's part of sharing our tradition and who we are, so that our children know that's a part of who we are. So this year, we want everybody to be a member of the Trinity Legacy Circle, and that's simply by making a gift or by letting us know that you have included it in your legacy planning. And we write it down and we figure out their forms and everything. But also this year, because this is the year we are kicking it off, we'd like you to consider being a founding member of the Trinity Legacy Circle. And that is not related to any amount, but rather between now and All Saints of this year, hope you'll do some discerning about how you might include Trinity. I do like what a treasurer of my last church said: you don't have to die to give to the church, but it is a part of. I've been in this church business too long that I'm making jokes like that. I apologize, but it is a part of. Let us know if this is something that you have already done, so that we can be aware of it, so that we can include it in our planning. Now, we've talked about stained glass. We have known that this stained glass project has been coming and in process, and we have known for a number of years that by dealing with the most needed stained glass, that was going to be about $1 million project, including both the stained glass and the masonry. This is glass that has simply hit the century mark, and some of it had reached a place where it was so warped that it absolutely had to be dealt with. And we realized that we needed to get started on this project even before starting to raise money. But this led to a deeper conversation about what needs to be done right now. And if we think about the endowment itself, yes, can we pay for this out of the endowment as it exists? Yes, we can. And in fact, that's how we've been managing many of our many projects for a long time. The problem with that is you immediately reduce your endowment by, $1 million, which means you have less resources to pay for the mission and ministry of the cathedral. But I think more importantly, we have missed an opportunity to reach out to one another, to be the people, the stewards of this cathedral, to step forward and add our generosity to what was given and prepared in the generations past. And in fact, I think the cathedral of 100 years now down the road needs us to step into this place. And so what we are doing is we have convened a capital campaign committee. We are not launching anything here. We don't have materials for you because this team is still in the midst of doing some really important and I would say exciting discernment work. We've begun to meet every other week for the past month and a half, and these have been great meetings. And I'm going to invite these folks to stand up. Our co-chairs are Howard Lewis and Cynthia Reese. And joining them, stand up if you could so we can see you. Ted Andrews, Bill DeTiro, Bill Fuller, Paul Hergesell, Pam Myers, Mary Ann O'Riordan, and Jeff Speece. And I put Dave, you're in parentheses, because as you can imagine, we can't really think about capital without thinking about the Property and Sustainability Committee. And we are talking about, the vestry has been doing work for a year and a half, preparing the ground, thinking about scope. Thinking about what are our greatest needs right now. And the bigger picture is how can this initiative, this project, this conversation help us to grow as a cathedral? Help us take a next step into laying a foundation for thriving community and ministry. And that, if we get through the end of this process, which will take several years, and we say, yes, we've raised some money, but we've grown in relationship with one another, we have grown as a cathedral community, we have grown in our capacity to carry out the vital ministry that God has given us to do, that's how we know we will have done what we're asked to do. So I want to thank you all. If you all have thoughts about what is important, what projects are in front of us, you can chat with any single one of those people. They would love to hear from you. And we will have an opportunity at the March 9th Dean Forum. We've been doing a few forums, the Dreamcasting, that's what this is about. And at the March 9th, we'll have an update, but it will be as much an opportunity for you all to join us in the forum and let us know what you're thinking. Oh, that's the best slide, right? Okay. Did I already show it off? Did I bury the lead? Sorry about that. So I've been here just over 6 years, and I am coming up on a wonderful sabbatical. I hope it'll be wonderful. From May through July, I am grateful to you all for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'll be doing some travel with family, a lot of sort of staying local, some rest, some recovery. It's been a big 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It's gone on 7. It's been a run. In many ways. And it'll be good to take a little bit of a break and then to sort of come back ready to go. We are hustling right now because we want to, at least when you think about capital work, when we think about hiring a priest associate, that's a big part of my work right now. We want to get the ducks in a row because I'm looking forward to coming back in August and getting those ducks quacking, really getting back to work. And we've got some big stuff ahead of us. It's fun, but it's also hard work. And so I ask for your prayers. While I'm on sabbatical, we are arranging pastoral coverage and additional preachers to step in and fill in that role. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to our canon, Adrian.
Hi, everybody. So it was so fun becoming your canon. Thank you for that. And it remains fun being your canon. And I thought I would lie to rest. Some people have asked me if becoming canon means that I'm leaving the cathedral staff. I am not. I am here. I am here to stay. I am here to continue our work together. And being a canon has allowed me to broaden the scope of my work in the diocese, which is a good thing for the cathedral. I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm now the diocesan liturgist. And so I just returned from crafting liturgy with all 8 mission areas for our annual convocation. And so got to be a part of getting to know all of these different areas throughout West, East. I was going to say North, and that wasn't going to work too well since that put me in Lake Erie. West, East, and South. And I'm getting to know the clergy and the parishes of this diocese by crafting those liturgies and joining the diocese for celebrations of new ministry for clergy and for regional confirmations to see the folks that are coming into the church. So it's been a real blessing. And again, this is good for Trinity to strengthen our connection to our new bishop and to give the cathedral a central role in convening liturgy throughout the diocese and being a part of our church as it evolves and grows in the Diocese of Ohio. And then in terms of this canon role, once we bring in a new priest associate, then I'll get to expand again. And I'll get to continue to be your pastor, but I'll also be able to engage Cleveland and Greater Cleveland with a little bit more energy and work and scope. So that all of that is good and exciting, and it's about expanding our community. I will now go to the 2 areas that I oversee. Faith formation is one of them. One of the big changes that we did this year was we incorporated children and youth into the umbrella of faith formation. We also did this in the neighborhood partnerships area, which I'll get to next. And this means incorporating staff member Eric Travis onto those mission teams, and we've seen some really wonderful things happen from that. First, we reorganized our Sunday school programs. We returned to a Montessori-based curriculum for the younger kids, which has been really fruitful. And we have new and wonderful teachers that have joined in to be able to teach the kids organized by age group every other Sunday. And on the off weeks, we go to this sort of one-room schoolhouse model where everyone is together and working on a project. And then we also added parent connectors. And this new role is a volunteer role, a person who signs up to encourage families with children close in age to get to know one another and to build community outside of the church. So we're working on building the relationship between families. And then I'll point to it right now with Eric Travis also on neighborhood partnerships. We're also trying to connect families to the justice work and the outreach ministries of the cathedral. So more about that in just a minute. I do want to talk a little bit about some growth that we've had in our Sunday formation hour. Compared to last year's numbers, we've grown by more than 25% in those who show up on a Sunday for our adult classes. And my joke has been, there was some anxiety about those who lead Bible study about moving to having 2 classes at the same time every Sunday. You know, we're going to split my class in half. We did lose half a person. Okay, we lost, statistically, we lost half a person. I feel bad for that person. I hope it was a good half they got to keep. But we added 10 more people to our other, by adding more forums from BJ, and that's really awesome. That's more than 25%. So it's about 30 to 40 is the average, and then when we have a larger speaker come in or an event where BJ convenes all of Trinity, we usually go beyond 60, 70 folks on a Sunday. So those are really great and encouraging numbers, and we had some special offerings this year from the Reverend Dr. This last year, C. Eric Funston, and he has now joined the faith formation team, and he's supporting us in Anglican liturgy and theology and practice. So he's teaching classes this coming year on those topics. But last year he began that at the end of the year, teaching us a class on Eucharist and liturgy. And then Dr. Bob Fowler continues to teach and offer Bible studies. We have been crafting these online, these classes that are available online, and it has helped us prepare for the curriculums we're working on this year through Church Next. So there's opportunities to engage when you're at home if you want to join the Church Next community. More on this at another time, but you can read a little bit about it in your annual report. And looking forward to all of the formation opportunities that Church Next has to offer us next year. Neighborhood partnerships is the other area that many of you are familiar with. One of the hallmarks of our neighborhood partnerships is our work with Marion Sterling, the local K-8 Cleveland City School just around the corner. And the main takeaway that you should take from these numbers is that we continue to meet the need. We continue to meet the need that our community members say that they have. And we also continue to build relationships so that there's mutual reciprocity and care between these communities. We had a number of special events this year. We had a teacher luncheon where BJ and I and a number of volunteers from Marion Sterling drives that we do each year came and sat down with the teachers and heard and learned what they care about, their passions in the community, ways that Trinity might vision together with them to support kids and families in the area. So we have a number of ideas in our mind from that event. And we also, this was bringing in Eric Travis. We also had our first ever Boo Bash. The week of Halloween. It was so fun, sort of transformed the cathedral into a spooky place and invited kids and families from the neighborhood to come and trick or treat and to be a part of our worship service that evening. So we had a great turnout for that. And that's a great example of Eric Travis's addition to the team, looking at how do we care and tend to not just the kids at the school, but the families, and invite them to come and be a part. And I also want to say, in terms of the Marion Sterling Drives, that Becky Fuller and Bill DeTiro did such an amazing job, as they had for the last 3 years, not only in managing these drives, but also in developing strategies so that they can be passed on. So if Becky or Bill or I or somebody else approaches you in the next coming months and says, come be a part of leadership for these Marion Sterling Drives, don't be afraid. They have Excel spreadsheets for you. They have all the things that you need. They've just done such a wonderful job to be able to pass this on to volunteers in the future. So thank you. Thank you to both of you for all of that work. A few of the other places that Neighborhood Partnerships touches are Urban Farm. We had a better year this year than last year, so we're excited about that in terms of produce. We went up from 840 pounds in 2023 to 1,207 in 2024, so able to feed more folks in the area. Our food right now goes to the local food bank in Central at the Friendly Inn. For campus ministries, we have some movement here. At the beginning of the year, we had a wonderful welcome event where we really engaged a number of students in real conversation and connection. So we didn't just offer them food, we offered them opportunities to speak with clergy, opportunities to eat and to connect and to learn about our space. There were tours of the cathedral. It was a really, really lovely event. And the United Protestant Campus Ministry Group, which is a group that has essentially mainline Christian groups that serve local college campuses. We've been connected to them for a number of years, and they've recently revamped and have a new leader. She's wonderful to work with, and she's developing a board to help with sustainability and expansion for what we call UpCam. And Jim Thomas has agreed to join that board. He went to the first meeting, gave us a report. So we have a new way of envisioning campus ministry work together, and a new partner in that for both Case Campus and CSU. So more to come on that as we learn about the other churches on this board and continue to connect. And thank you to Jim for being a part of that. Lastly, I want to talk about our connection to LGBTQ groups in the area. Last year, when a number of policies went out at particular religious institutions in the area that were anti-LGBTQ, the LGBTQ Center of Cleveland came to us and said, help. What do? We suddenly have Christians. People are telling us they're Christian. We didn't know. And they want support in their churches. And so that was new for the LGBTQ Center to realize they had so many Christians that were a part of the center and that they needed spiritual support. So I asked Vincent Black over at Church of the Ascension, am I saying that right? Lakewood? Yep. To work with me on this, and he and I had 2 separate groups where we met in person early last year, and then based on need, we ended up combining that group and turning this into an online group of support for church hurt. So we've been doing that. There continues to be a great need, and we're creating a safe place for conversation for LGBTQ folks to talk to clergy and talk to one another and find hope and healing. So that continues. Again, Eric Travis, his coming on to neighborhood partnerships, he brought with him some volunteer work he was doing with PFLAG to support families of children that are in the LGBTQ community. And he helped to organize a chosen family meal this year around the holidays. And we hosted that at Trinity. So you can see a couple of pictures from that in your annual report. And that's it from me.
Once again, Adrian Cook is the canon for not going anywhere, thank God. Just a few people have asked, right? As we, with the search for a priest associate, like, oh my, are we changing? No, we're growing our clergy staff to better carry out the ministry of this place. Quick note, I want to give a word of thanks to Jeff Spees and Kim De Niro Ackroyd for their, been a long day of talking. De Niro Ackroyd for their faithful service. As you can imagine, there are a lot of things that come our way, and I thank them for their. They care so deeply about this place, and about the people of this place, and about the mission of this place, and are always there if something comes up. We meet on a regular basis, but just 2 deeply faithful, wise, discerning people. I'm so grateful to be working with you. Thank you so much. I am pleased to announce the results of the ballot for elected to 3-year terms: John Chapman, Tony Ponzo, Cynthia Reese, and Jeff Spees, and elected to next year's nominating committee, Scott Blanchard and Ron Ross. Thanks to our balloting committee, and thanks to these 6 people for being willing to serve in ministry. And with that, we are pleased to turn it over to you all for questions. We are all here. Do we have a microphone to hand around? Or if there's one of those things where we... Okay, thank you.
Hi, BJ, sort of a basic question, and I know there's nuances to the issue of membership, but what's our estimated membership at Trinity Cathedral currently among adult communicants? I didn't actually see it detailed in the report.
That's an actual number. So if I shoot for it,
Even just estimated.
I think it's around 350. And with last year's, I think we were around 350, 370 communicants in good standing. And then we had, I think, 183 ASA, but if you add in online attendance, it got us to about 220. And remember that as a cathedral, membership, communicants in good standing refers to sort of one specific version of those who are here. We have a much wider aperture when we talk about others who are active. So think of it in terms of a cathedral is bigger than a congregation, but we do have within that a congregation. And to me, membership, it's about pastoral care. We try to be very rigorous about how we track who is here and who is in our care, so that we are giving the best pastoral care that we can. But thank you for your question.
I just wanted to mention briefly how extraordinary the Boar's Head Festival is, between the lights and all the animals, and it was like the most splendid evening, and spiritually and aesthetically I've ever had. It was extraordinary.
Wonderful.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Well, I think you all know what I'm going to say. I love Trinity. It's a sacred place for all of us. But I feel like I would like to enhance or bring our attention more to environmental issues and sustainability. We're a great church, but our national church, Creation Care is one of their huge efforts. So we have a start with the Sustainable Garden Plan. I'd like to attack Cathedral Hall, bring in some nice wood benches and invite folks in and feed people there or feed ourselves. You know, during COVID, we were out there and it was wonderful under the trees and having services. So I'm not sure what shape that will take or what form, maybe working with Dave or, in any way I can help. I feel like we should be more aware. We've all seen the fires in California, the earthquakes and the floods. I mean, it's coming.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but it's coming. And if we can prepare psychologically as well as physically to sustain what we have for as long as we can, I think we need to think about that.
Let me respond to that I think what you're helping us to see is not only important issues, but also how do we address that and many of the other things that are important to us or that we're excited about or weigh heavily on our hearts. I too am passionate about environmental ministry. We also, in each case, we also look at every ministry has a life cycle. And I think what I find in a lot of Episcopal churches is a great passion for it, but sometimes the environmental ministry has seasons when there's a lot of people showing up for it, and then there's others where you sort of let it be on the back burner, not because it's not important, but because in our case, we have mission teams. And the role of the mission teams is to think about where do we have energy and capacity to follow on things that are important to us. And Creation Care, as an example, is something that exists under peace, justice, and mercy. But not everything is going to currently have a cathedral circle, for example. Are there people stepping forward to lead it? And we, as a cathedral, we need to be attentive not only to what is laying heavy on our heart, but also to be wise about how we can't always follow through with everything as much as we want to. So thinking about how do we continue to keep Creation Care at the front of our mind? How do we keep a lot of the things that are important to us without also being kind of overwhelmed? Because there's a lot of things that lay heavy on our hearts right now as well. So, but Gail, thank you for taking the mic and reminding us of its importance. Fran.
I was hoping this year that I wouldn't have to say anything, but I see Cleveland State University, several lines, but a place at the table has a line and a half in all this reading that we have all these community people that if you're at the place at the table, there's families coming with kids, and it's getting worse and worse. That we have a food desert that we need to step up now to take care of these people. It's sad to see these people come in, and I know that the Central, you mentioned Friendly Inn, but that's struggling. We should be stepping up and helping them and supporting them and everything.
I think we absolutely, I think when we think of our neighborhood, CSU is a part of our neighborhood, but so are a great many people who are under-resourced and in need of just food, a basic meal. And I think, practically speaking, the amount of resources and time and energy and people that we put into a place at the table is exponentially more than we do into campus ministry. I'm not sure how it was reflected in the annual report, but that continues to be a vital part of our ministry. Absolutely.
I'll say too that if you look at the congregational life page, there should be information on APAT. That's the mission team that houses APAT. So that's why it's not up on the neighborhood partnership slide, in case folks are wondering.
Okay.
Anything new on Mather Hall?
The award goes to Bob for naming it first. Balloons fall from the sky. Not really. However, it is not for lack of attention in terms of, we are well aware that we have not forgotten about it. It continues to be a significant development challenge, and one that requires a lot of careful teamwork with the diocese. I will add, I don't know if I've had a chance to mention this since we gathered, we participated, we being Cynthia Reese, Cheryl Williams, and I, with a team from the diocese and a team from St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Cleveland, in a digital conference called The Gift of Place, put on by Trinity Wall Street, their mission real estate group, which it was a 2-day conference looking at folks who have done similar work to think about how do we use assets that we have, be that open land or old buildings or old churches, to use it to redevelop it. What does redevelopment look like? Whether that is for especially to create not only mission opportunities, but also revenue sources. So that did not lead us to, we do not have a go plan yet, but it does, we remain in contact with them about what feasibility plans, what pre-development could look like. It continues to be a large project that is before us. I think anything would be considered in it. I mean, I think once we start looking at, what is possible, whether it's housing, ministry, redevelopment entirely, I think any conversation would lead us to a place of looking at everything that is possible, and then considering everything from feasibility to development to cost to operationalizing it after the fact. Because anything you do, if you have any programming, you have to think about who's running it, who's paying for it, what is then the burden or the opportunity for the cathedral as well. So absolutely. Anybody want to buy it? I do make jokes, but in reality, it is simply a complex development project. There could, we hope to find a great opportunity in it. We hope to be in conversation with community partners. We have been for years, but getting to that development point is a big one. And I follow some of the local development blogs, and it's interesting. And Cynthia also makes sure I keeps it heading our way as well. A lot of these old buildings have very long stories between occupants. And so that continues to be on us. But I do also have to name that what is before us in terms of leadership, in terms of development, ongoing cathedral care, ongoing congregational care, pastoral care, which is our responsibility and something, that's what we got into this for, as well as capital projects. That's a lot. And then when we add development of Mather, one of the challenges is finding the institutional capacity to do things like that and to do that well. And one of the challenges is when we're kind of playing catch up on projects that are many decades in the making, it can lead to a lot of work. And so that's just one of the realities to be thinking about. Going once. Going twice. Thank you all. As always, as you have questions, please send them our way, whether to me or to our wardens. It's really important to bring everybody into these conversations, and we thank you. I'm going to go see if there's any other items before I conclude us. Oh, there's a big Q and A. We missed that. Very well, Brandon. Who's got it? Let me see. All right. I am going to, a closing prayer. God be with you. Let us pray. Loving God, for the gift of glass and masonry, for the gift of PowerPoint and audiovisual, for the gift of spirited ministry, for the gift of passion and commitment to the temple, but also to the people outside of our doors who are in such great need. I give thanks for this wonderful, faithful congregation, for our commitment to one another, commitment to being the body of Christ. We give thanks. Bless our ministry, bless our discernment, bless our work in the months and years and decades to come. All this we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. A reminder, if I could ask our vestry to gather in AB to join me in building a Lego project. For another meeting. It'll be short. It'll be short.